The Old Testament book of 1 Samuel, if you want to find your way there. This is the second in a series of sermons about best friends and how to be friends. And this morning this is called Be Best Friends Forever, David and Jonathan. Let me read a few lines to you from an older song, I think it was about 1990, that Michael W. Smith sang. And it's called Friends. It goes like this. Packing up the dreams God planted in the fertile soil of you, I can't believe the hopes He's granted means the chapter of your life is through. But we'll keep you close as always. It won't even seem you've gone, because our hearts in big and small ways will keep the love that keeps us strong. Isn't that a great song? How many of y'all remember this song, know this song? Would you all stand with me? Let's all stand. We're going to sing. It's written there on your worksheet. Okay? So, let's give this a try. And friends are friends forever if the Lord's the Lord of them. And a friend will not say never, 'cause the welcome will not end. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to live as friends. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to live as friends. Amen. Be seated there. Yoo-hoo! Don't you feel like you should be singing Kumbaya next or something? You know, kind of all going like, the lifetime's not too long. Yeah, no lighters. It's warm enough in here. Now, in your lifetime, you'll probably have every form and level of friendship that's possible. We have casual friends. Those are things, people like neighbors and coworkers and classmates that we have the ability to relax with and enjoy being together with them. And then there are close friends, people we feel so comfortable with that we go to their homes and we spend some time together. Or maybe we go to a game and we watch it sitting side by side. Or maybe you have a dinner with them where you encourage one another in your faith and in your love for one another. Your close friends are people that you can count on anytime and all the time with few exceptions because they're always going to be there to help. You know, one of the differences between a casual and a close friend is this. A casual friend says, let me check my calendar and see. And a close friend always clears their calendar and says, I'll be there for you. But there's another kind of friendship that we can all long for and that we all maybe need in this life. It's the deepest level of friendship. We call those intimate friends. And that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to rain on your parade, but I doubt that you will have more than one or two intimate friends in your entire lifetime. You see, these are people with whom there is such a closeness that your souls become knitted together. You learn to think alike. You're totally honest and vulnerable with each other. You would easily have a broken heart if this person were suddenly gone from your life. Now, I want you here at Cedar Ridge Church to know that your elders and I are close friends. In order to get together for meetings about you, official church business, we have to check our calendars first, and there's a reason for that. It's because each of us has an intimate friendship that we all have, we put at the highest human place in our lives. For Sig, it's his beloved Ann, and for Howard, it's his dear love Debbie, and for me, it's my I love you more today than yesterday, but not as much as tomorrow, Linda. You guys need to improve a little bit on the way you, okay. I know I wrote this. See, an intimate friend knows enough about you to ruin you, but they don't betray you, partly because you're loved and partly because you could do the same in return. Now, this intimate, close relationship is not limited to husbands and wives. There's an example of two guys with an intimate and godly relationship in the Old Testament, 1 Samuel chapter 14. We're going to see what this relationship is all about, this relationship between Jonathan and David, and what it can teach us about developing and maintaining intimate relationships. When David and Jonathan were growing up, nobody would have ever guessed that they would one day be close friends, intimate friends. You see, they did not have very many things in common. David was the 8th son of a shepherd, and he worked out in the pastures. Jonathan was the first son of the king, and he grew up with all the privileges of living in the palace. Country boy, city boy. The palace, the pasture. They just don't seem to have too many things in common here. But I think that for 3 reasons, or maybe they were just God-directed circumstances, but at least for 3 reasons, they become close. And then they become intimate friends. The first one, David was invited to play music in the palace. While tending his sheep, David learned to play what the Bible calls a harp, but we might consider it like an acoustical guitar. When King Saul was troubled by an evil spirit that shook him into depression, David was called upon to play music that would soothe the king's soul and his nerves. So David and Jonathan spent a lot of time together, probably because they were in their late teens and they had something in common, their age, and so they started to become friends. Okay, the second thing, in spite of their obvious differences, they built a friendship on what they did have in common. They both have courageous, adventuresome temperaments. They were type A personalities who loved to take risks and live on the edge. If these two guys were alive today, they would be X-game athletes, doing crazy things on dirt bikes, skateboards, BMX bikes, snowboards, jumping out of airplanes and off cliffs, swimming with sharks without a cage, and jumping out of a helicopter just to ski down an unskiable mountain. They were the do people before there was a do. One day, David's father sent him to the battlefront to deliver a care package to his 3 brothers. They were soldiers serving there in the military. He arrived at the camp just as Goliath, the Philistine giant, he was nearly 10 feet tall, stepped out of his battle lines, and he stepped out into the middle of the battlefield, and he yelled, "You Israelites, you're a bunch of no good, rotten, cowardly warriors, and I'm going to kill you. I want you to pick your best soldier and send him out here to fight me. And if you win, we'll be your slaves." Like that's going to happen, he says. But if I beat you, then you're going to be our slaves. It's winner take all. So what do the Israelites do? They start shaking in fear because this guy is a giant. He's 10 feet tall. Young David was there just when Goliath said this, and he was really upset that nobody stood up and accepted the challenge. And he said, "Don't let that pagan Philistine make fools of us. Who does he think he is, taunting the armies of the living God?" Well, his angry brothers sneered at him. "Shut up! What do you think? The guy I want to draw attention? This is real life, David. Go back to tending your scrawny sheep of flocks, you little boy." Well, David just ignored their ridicule, saying, "I'll fight him if nobody else will." Saul heard about this. He objected. He said, "David, you're too young and you're inexperienced. You can't do it." And David said, "Yes, I can." See, type A personality. Yes, I can. The same God who delivered me from the teeth of the lion and the claws of the bear will deliver me from Goliath. And Saul said, "Well, you're the only volunteer. Go for it." David headed out toward the Philistine. He didn't have any armor. He didn't have any battlefield weapons. All he had was his slingshot. He headed straight toward the Philistine. And, it turns out, it's really interesting, that while he was tending his dad's sheep, David just didn't lay around writing songs and practicing the harp. He diligently practiced with his slingshot, and he became a skilled marksman. Well, Goliath took one look at him and he scoffed, "Am I a dog that you come after me with a stick? Come on, kid. I'll make roadkill of you. This is where trash talking first started in athletics. David confidently answered back, you come at me with sword and spear, but I come at you in the name of Almighty God, whom you curse and mock. This day, God is handing you over to me, and your body will be fed to the crows and coyotes, and everyone will know there is a God in Israel. And he says, this battle belongs to him. Well, that response stirred Goliath to greater anger, and he lumbered toward David. David waited for just the right moment. He started swinging his sling and hit Goliath right between the eyes in the middle of the forehead. He stumbled and trying to stay up, but he crashed face down in the dirt. And David ran over to the unconscious Goliath, pulled out his sword, the giant's own sword, and cut off his head, which he carried home as a trophy, which I'm sure pleased his mother no end. Look, Mom, I got a frog. Oh, put that out of the house. Look, I got a head. David wasn't just a soft shepherd, musical artist type boy here. Like Lance Crowder, he was one rugged and tough musician. If you looked at that guy's beard, you can see he's tough. Jonathan also resonated with that very same kind of courage. You see, he was a brave soldier. He was a trained soldier. He wasn't a pampered prince. There was a military standoff with the same Philistines going on. And 1 Samuel 14:6 tells us that Jonathan said to his armor bearer, let's go down to the valley below the cliff top where the Philistines' army is camped, just the two of us. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. Once we get there, we'll show ourselves to the guards. If they say, halt, don't move until we check you out, we'll not go after them. But if the sentries say, come on up here, we'll go right up because that'll be our sign that God has given them to us. The armor bearer said, I'm with you. Then they went without telling anybody. 1 Samuel 14:12 says, the men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, come on up to us and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Jonathan climbed up using his hands and feet with his armor bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan and his armor bearer followed and killed behind him. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area of about half an acre. Now, the rest of the Philistine army panicked, and the Israelites won a huge victory that day. Why? Type A personality. Nothing can stop us. And when David and Jonathan got together in the palace, they talked about these things. They discovered they actually did have some things in common here. Skills and attitude and stories and adventures. But there was one thing they had in common that sealed the deal for life. It's the most important thing of all. The third thing on your worksheet is they both had a deep faith in God. You see, when they fought their battles, they both said, this is of God, or God is delivering us. I guess it's a little surprising that Jonathan was a godly man considering the spiritual rebellion of his father, the king, but he was. And when you have two young, brave men about the same age, the same ideas about life and the way of thinking, same temperament, who both love the Lord and put Him first, that's the stuff of which intimate friends are made. So here's the first lesson I want you to learn today. The first lesson for today is this. Intimate friends develop naturally over time. Some people are so eager for an intimate friend that they try to force it too fast. They're just casual friends, but they try to make something happen way too fast. Maybe they start spilling their most intimate secrets, and that's TMI, too much information, and it sort of interferes. Or maybe they demand time and resources, commitments from a casual friends that are unreasonable, and people kind of push them off. They drive people away because they may be insecure and needy. Now, you know that Jesus had friends on various levels. In the Bible, it tells us there were, specifically 120 followers who were loyal to him to the end. And then there were 12 disciples who were in his inner circle, his close friends. And of those 12, there were 3 who were more intimate with him. You see, Peter, James, and John were sometimes taken into more private and privileged settings. They were entrusted with some teaching and some information that the others would learn from Peter, James, and John when Jesus had died and gone into heaven. So these things occur over time. Reading in the Gospels, it's evident that those close, intimate friendships were not instantaneous. For any number of reasons, they developed as time went by. Now, let's turn to 1 Samuel 18, and we're going to take a look at the first 4 verses there. After David had finished talking with Saul, they were rehashing the killing of Goliath. The Bible tells us that Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. Now, I know that over the years, some people have taken their own dark thinking about relationships and behavior, maybe their own behavior, and they applied it to the friendship in this story, and they've tainted it by saying that these guys had a sexual relationship. But to put it nicely, that's just silly sickness. They were just friends. They were just intimate friends with so much in life in common, but that's all they were. They were just friends. You know, think about this. Every time that David got into trouble, it was with a woman. Now, that was David's fault. He did those things, but his temptation was always in that way. It was always with the woman living next door or somebody that he rescued. So that's probably enough said about that. Verse 2. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not have him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe and gave it to David along with his tunic, even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Now keep in mind that Jonathan was the king's son. He was the next in line to the throne. You would think that he would be concerned here, that he might be jealous or possibly resentful of David, but he wasn't. You see, he was David's number 1 advocate and BFF. Maybe that was because Jonathan was so godly that he just accepted that this was going to be God's will. Maybe it was because he didn't want to be king. You know, he'd seen what happened to his father, and he didn't want all that stress. Did you know that Lauren Williams was a deacon at Kent Hill Church, Cedar Ridge Church at one time? Well, we reluctantly accepted his resignation. And one day, a little later, he put it into perspective for me saying this: I just like being a normal guy. I just want to be able to get more things done, and I believe that I can get more done for my service to the Lord that way, just by being normal. You see, all Lauren wants to do is serve Jesus without the trappings or the concerns of who's going to be the boss and get to make the decisions around here. He kind of reminds me of the saying that was on then President Ronald Reagan's desk: a lot of work will get done around here if we don't worry about who gets the credit. And that's Lauren. He's doing the work of God, not worried about who gets the credit. Well, Jonathan had accepted the fact that it was God's will for David to be the next king. He loved and he supported that decision. He loved and he supported David. Watch those fingers in that door. Somebody's going to get it. David became a national hero. And after he defeated the giant Goliath, Saul rewarded David by giving him a high rank in the army. And whatever David did, he did well. Pretty much everybody in the kingdom loved David, but not everyone. You see, King Saul was becoming increasingly jealous of him. In 1 Samuel 18, verse 6, it starts, when the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out of the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs, and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Saul was very angry. This refrain galled him. They had credited David with tens of thousands. He thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that day on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. Now, poet John Dryden called jealousy the jaundice of the soul. And it is for Saul because it destroys his soul. The next day, one of those ugly moods of depression overwhelmed the king, and David was called to play music for him. But this time, David's presence only caused more problems. Saul became more angry, and he exploded in murderous rage. He had a spear nearby. He grabbed it, and he threw it in fury at David, trying to kill him. He said, I'm going to nail David to the wall, but David ducked just in time. Okay? End of incident. No, it happened again. And again, David avoided being a shish kebab on the palace wall. Now, kings are not above the law, and they are not legally allowed to just kill anybody. Everybody starts to make excuses. Well, the king's not himself. He's mental and he didn't take his medication today. Whatever. They started saying all kinds of things. Well, Saul sent David into one dangerous battle after another, hoping he would be killed. But God was with him, and he won battle after battle after battle. 1 Samuel 18, verse 14 reads, In everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. And this only made Saul more hostile. He was burning with anger. But I want you to look and see how Jonathan stood up for his BFF, his best friend forever. 1 Samuel 19, verse 4. Jonathan spoke well of David to his father and said to him, Let not the king do wrong with his servant David. He has not wronged you, and what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life in his hands when he killed the Philistine. The Lord won a great victory for all Israel, and you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason? Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath. As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. Now here's the second lesson. Intimate friends get your back no matter what. A good friend doesn't cut you down or gossip about you. A good friend stands up for you and is loyal to you at the risk of being isolated by others. A good friend stands up for you even when you're not there. You don't have much of a friend if they criticize you or talk bad about you behind your back. Well, Jonathan stood up for David to his father when David wasn't there. His father calmed down, and so David is restored to a place in the palace, but not for long. Saul goes berserk again. He sends a bunch of soldiers to David's house to kill him while he's sleeping, and David barely escapes. Now, 1 Samuel 20, verse 1. Then David fled to Naioth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, What have I done? What have I done? What crime have I committed? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to take my life? And Jonathan says, Never! You're not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without confiding in me. Why would he hide this from me? It's not that way, David, he says. But David took an oath and said, Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only one step between me and death. When we believe in people, like our dads and our moms and some of our friends, we believe the best in them because we love them. So we can sometimes be a little bit naive about them. David said to Jonathan, Your father's trying to kill me still. Jonathan said, No way. My dad repented of that. He's close to me. He would have told me. David said, I'm telling you, though you don't want to hear it, he's determined to kill me. Now here's the third thing, the third lesson. An intimate friend tells the truth even though it's unpleasant. Proverbs 27:5 reads, Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Sometimes a friend needs to say, I think your mate is cheating on you. Or your son is lying to you. Or I think you're endangering your reputation by spending too much time with that person. Or that Bible study has false teaching and you shouldn't get involved. Or you're developing too much dependency on those painkillers. Or maybe you shouldn't be an American Idol contestant. Don't they need good friends, some of those people? Now, when you say those things, you risk alienation or maybe causing somebody to be angry. But if you really care for your friend, you, in love, tell the truth. And you do it as lovingly and as firmly, as directly as you can. And you do that because they mean more to you than you do to your own self. If your friend tells you something you don't want to hear, be smart. Be wise. Be wise enough to listen and pay attention. David was grateful that Jonathan listened to him. Look down in 1 Samuel 20, verse 4. Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for you." And David came up with a plan. He said, "Tomorrow begins the New Moon Festival. I'm scheduled to go to eat with your family, but I'm not going to go because my life is in danger. If the king asks about me, tell him, I asked your permission to go back to Bethlehem for an anniversary reunion and to be with my family. If your dad says that's fine, then I'm safe. But if he gets angry because I'm not there, you know for sure that he's trying to kill me." Jonathan promised, "Okay, I'll find out how he feels about you. I won't let you down, David. If he intends to kill you, I'll help you get out of here in one piece." And Jonathan said, "I know that you're going to take my father's place on the throne." And in 1 Samuel 20, verse 14, we read, "Show me unfailing kindness like that of the Lord as long as I live, so that I may not be killed, and do not ever cut off your kindness from my family." Now here's what he's getting at. When a new king comes to power, they kill everybody in the old king's family. So Jonathan, he's just saying, reassuring, "Okay, David, we're friends. Let's remember this." And he says, "Not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth." So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord call David's enemies to account." And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him because he loved him as he loved himself. Then Jonathan added this, "I'll find out what's going on. Here's how I'll get a message to you. Do you remember that big boulder in the field behind the palace where you and I used to play as kids when we were younger? Well, you be in that spot on the third morning. I'll come out in the yard and pretend to practice archery. I'll shoot some arrows and send my servant to fetch them. If you hear me shout, 'The arrows are on this side, come back this way,' then you can return safely. But if I yell at the servant, 'The arrows are farther out, keep going,' then David, you better run for it because God wants you to get out of here." Now listen what happens. The first night of the festival, Saul didn't say anything about David's empty chair, thinking maybe he was delayed. The second night he asked Jonathan, "Where is the son of Jesse? He hasn't been here tonight either," Jonathan said. "He asked me for permission to go down to Bethlehem to be with his family, and I told him, go ahead." Now, 1 Samuel 20, verse 30 says, Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, "You son of a perverse and rebellious woman." He was being kind. "Don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send and bring him to me, for he must die." "Why should he be put to death?" Jonathan asks. "What has he done?" But Saul hurled his spear at his own son to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Yeah, I know. You think you figured it out. But even it's so hard. The reality of it is the man that he loves and respects and admires, it's just going to be so hard for him. But the next morning, Jonathan sadly goes out. He shoots a few arrows. David was hiding behind the boulder and heard Jonathan shout, "The arrows are beyond you. Better keep going farther." And David knew that it was time to run. But since nobody else was in the area, Jonathan dismissed the servant and hurried out to David's hiding place. And 1 Samuel 20, verse 41 says, after the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace. For we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'" Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. All right, about a decade or so goes by. David lives as a fugitive. He's hunted like a dog. He eventually gathers about 600 malcontents and rugged men who serve in his own private army. They hire themselves out. They hide in caves. They seek refuge in foreign countries, and they live off the land. And one day, Jonathan discovers where David was, and he sneaked out to meet him for a final visit. And he just couldn't stand not being around his best friend forever. And Proverbs 17:17 says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." And that's the intimate nature that they had in their relationship. You know, Jeff Foxworthy quipped, they say, you know a person's a good friend when you call them in the middle of the night and ask them to come down and get you out of jail. They don't ask what you did, but they ask, where are you? Of course, he goes on to say, a really good friend would have been in jail with you. That's not true. Here's the fourth thing, the last thing. Intimate friends always keep their promises. There was a period of civil war and uncertainty that followed. A number of years go by. David finally becomes king, and he remembered his decade-old promise to Jonathan to care for his family. Jonathan and Saul have both died, and so he remembers his promise. He gave an order that a search be made to see if any of Jonathan's family might still be alive, not to kill them, but to bless them and to care for them. And they found only one son of Jonathan, a young man named Mephibosheth. And in 2 Samuel 9:13, it says, and Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table and he was crippled in both feet. Now, a good friend keeps his promises even when it's not convenient. If a friend promises to be there when you get married, that friend shows up. If a friend promises to pay you back, that friend pays you back. If a friend promises to telephone your mother, he'll do it. If a friend promises to be loyal until death parts you, he will keep that loyalty. An intimate friend gives more for the good of the relationship than he or she can ever get back. They do this because they believe in that friend. In Psalm 15 we read, he whose walk is blameless and who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from his heart and has no slander on his tongue, who does his neighbor no wrong and casts no slur on his fellow man. And down in verse 5 it says, he who keeps his oath even when it hurts, he who does these things will never be shaken. The friendship will never be shaken. Now, that's one of those things that Jesus did that was so wonderful. He always kept his promises. Jesus promised that he would seek and save those who were lost. Well, he seeks for us even when we've fallen into sin and become crippled and have little that we can contribute back to him. And though he has the power and the right to destroy us, his promise is that he would not condemn the world, but that through him the world might be saved. And folks, the effort to save us cost him the price of his own blood on the cross. He promised that if we accept him, we would be adopted into his family. To all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Now here's one more promise that Jesus made. It's this. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. And the last one, he is coming back to take us home. Amen. He's coming back to take us home. And if you're a born-again Christian, you get to go to the place that he's been preparing for you for a couple of thousand years. Look around you and find one of these blue books. Stand with me. We're going to sing a closing song here. It's time to go. Thank you for your patience. Let's all stand together.